What's going on, guys? In today's video I'm going to go over and cover some basic simple fundamentals, some just simple tips to help get you started in PvP if you've never done it before. And this video, before you get too far into watching it, is meant for people that are just starting PvPs. Some beginner basic tips that some people may know and some may not know. And I would suggest visiting Renala in the Academy and using a larval tier to respec your build if needed. The first thing that we're going to talk about basically is how to distribute your attributes and how it reflects towards your build directly. Usually between level 125 to 150 is where you want to start. If you've over leveled, then that's fine. You can still respec to make sure that your character is optimized, but usually the higher you go, the more points you have to be a jack of all trades. So a lot of people like to keep the level a little lower. That way you have to specialize into a certain stat to get more damage, and it's not so much of your points are everywhere, you can do everything. So my first tip, guys, is to put enough vigor to get your health up to a respectable amount. I like to have between 50 and 60 vigor, just because I like to have a bare minimum of 2,000 in my build that I've been running lately. I've had upwards to 23 to 2400, which you don't have to have that, but as a beginner, as somebody that's first starting out in PvP, I would recommend a minimum of 2,000. I've run a lot lower, and the more you have, you'll be a little more comfortable with that. So 50 to 60 into vigor. Now, after you figure out how much vigor you want to have, you want to at least put a good chunk of points into your main scaling damage attribute that scales off of your weapon. For example, if I was going to make a heavy greatsword build, it scales off of strength. I would put the majority of my points into strength. Now, if I was going to make a clean right knight sword build, I'd put the majority of my scaling into strength with a little secondary into dexterity. And you don't have to do that. I am an arcane build, so I am scaling off the blood loss. So I don't really care about damage. With the blood stock, I can do more damage with my scaling into dex, but since I'm scaling off blood loss buildup, I am building my points into arcane, and I'm going to get the majority of my damage from building up bleed on my opponent. So you want to put a considerable amount into whatever weapon or style you're using. If you're using intelligence, you want to go intelligence. Like if you're using sorceries, if you want to use faith and fire, you would build a lot into faith. You could do a hybrid. I would not exactly recommend it if you're just starting out, but that is your idea there of what you want to go for. And then just make sure you have enough stats to wear your gear, whether it takes this or that amount of strength or dexterity or intelligence or faith for your gear. When I say gear, I mean spells and items. You want to make sure you have enough stats to wear that. And then basically the rest of your points, it goes to endurance or mind. Like if you need more mind, if you cast a lot of spells, you cast more spells, then mind is what you want to put in. If you need more stamina, more poise, then you would put more points into endurance. It's really up to your personal play style. Guys, tip number 2 is definitely make sure you have your weapons upgraded to plus 25, and if it's a sombering weapon, make sure you have it plus 10. So whether it's a finger seal or anything sorcery or melee, if it's the weapon and the build that you're going to use, you need it desperately to be upgraded. So make sure you're finding all the bell bearings and you're getting the stones, the sombering stones, the smithing stones that you need to visit the blacksmith and get those things upgraded. As far as talismans, you want to make the right choice of talismans based on what build you are. If you're not doing the right optimization, it will be negative towards your build. So basically you want talismans that accommodate your build, that supplement your build with what you have going on. Whether it's the Crimson Medallion that you want to increase your health, or the Erdtree's favorite health, stamina, and equipment load. You might want Bull Goats for poise. Or if you're an intelligence build, make sure you have the sorcery stacking talismans. If you're a faith build, you won't have the faith stacking talismans. Whatever the case is, make sure you're running the right talismans. You do not want to run like a sorcery stacking talisman if you're a bleed build. You don't want to do that. So it's very important that you realize that, and you optimize your build by having those talismans. It'll make a huge difference. And I personally recommend, having a talisman that increases your life, maybe your equipment load if you need it. Having something that increases your damage, that's always good. If you want to have something that increases your sustain, you can. It's really a personal choice. But for example, in my current bleed build, I have a talisman that increases my bleed resistance to fight other bleed builds with, since there's so many bleed builds. I have the Crimson Medallion that increases my health, which is always good. I have the Erd Tree Seal, which increases your health and your stamina and your equipment load by a little bit, so that you can have more of those stats and utilize more heavier armor and have more stamina to attack your opponents and just for utility. And then I have the poise ring, the Bullet ring, to have extra poise so I can withstand a stacker or two. So that is what I personally use, but what you use is going to be different depending on your build. You just have to make sure you're using the right thing. So with all that said, let's get right into the third and final tip, guys, to help you be a better PvPer when you're first starting off. So basically, after you've set up your build and you've set up your gear, you want to go start dealing. One place that you can deal is the first step. I really like it a lot. It's not quite as active as the next place I'm going to show you, but basically you go here and you just look for red signs, or you could drop your red sign and be summoned by other players. And this is a pretty good dueling place. You jump down off the rock and there's a lot of area of play here that you could utilize. It's got a big wide open space and it's pretty easy accessible since you start the game right here basically. So you can always go here and get some deals. I probably like it a lot better than the other place, but you'll have more activity at the academy, which I'm about to show you. But this is definitely a good place to deal, and I would recommend getting a lot of dealing in before you try invasions, just to get used to your build and stuff. So the second place is right here, the main academy gate. This is probably the most popular place. This is definitely see, as I use a Vergalling remedy, that there's just signs all over the ground. This is the great place to fight different builds and practice different stuff against different types of opponents. You'll see everything here, from bleed builds to magic builds to faith builds to melee builds to all kinds of different weapons. And the only way you're going to get better at PvPing is to get in there and summon some of these guys and practice. Or like I said, you can also drop your red sign and be summoned by them and get a lot of practice in. And once you spend a few days, 2, 3, 4, 5 days practicing, you'll get a lot better, and you'll get a lot better at knowing if this is the build for you. But anyways, guys, that's it for this video. I hope you learned something. Thanks for watching.